The hype was absolutely real for this one. This is kart precision racing, developed back in 1997. It was an IndyCar/kart simulator that claimed to be the next level. You see it right there, pushing the limits of racing reality. It was released on Windows aggressively for the Windows platform, and it was developed by the studio called Terminal Velocity, who are more known for their Monster Truck Madness games and later on the Fly series of semi-accurate flight simulators. But this was their foray into an accurate driving simulator, and at the time it was marketed and treated as such. This was claimed to be the next big thing, and it came out just a couple years after Papyrus's IndyCar Racing 2, and so logically everybody was comparing this to IndyCar 2, and surprisingly, and based off what you're going to see here, this was reviewed really well. Everyone thought this was the coolest thing in the world, all the features that it had, and some of them are admittedly really cool. We'll go through some of those, but it was reviewed incredibly well by main publishing outlets. If you look a little deeper into the folks that really liked racing simulators, and especially the Papyrus games, this was not reviewed as well. There's some redeeming qualities of it, but overall it was kind of put on the back burner and never really revisited. So this is a sim I didn't really get to play back in the day. Came out at that awkward time in PCs, I think for many, where you had to have really advanced hardware to run some of this stuff, and by the time you had the hardware to run this stuff, it didn't really work super well anymore. But I've gotten it working now, and it's not the easiest thing to get working on a modern PC. This is running on Windows 10, but requires nglide, a 3D wrapper, as well as a couple patches, and I've pulled out the old G27 again, since it needs a pretty basic type joystick controller, and was able to get that working in simple combined pedal mode and a shorter degrees of rotation. So I've got it working, and I want to take a look through some of the features it did have and do a kind of casual review to see what this is all about. So I will pop into the races menu, which is where you can go configure your whole race, because this is a kart simulator from 1997, and it does simulate the 1997 season. You've got right there Brian Herta with his round glasses. He looked like such a sweet boy, I guess, back in the day. But you got the full roster of teams from the 1997 kart season, which is great to see. I'll click on Patrick Racing here. So we got Scott Pruitt and Raul Boesel. And most of the drivers. There are a couple notable absent drivers, Michael Andretti being one of those, and oddly enough, he's replaced by Mr. Carl Haas himself. I guess they couldn't think of anything better than making the owner of the team be the driver. So we've got a blacked out helmet here for Michael's car, and Carl Haas driving, I guess, which is interesting, alongside Christian Fittipaldi. And of course, censorship. I guess they didn't quite get this Bud logo there, but overall, quite standard stuff, I guess, for a simulator back in these times, but able to get most of the drivers and everything, which is very cool. I think this is probably some of the best parts of this simulator now, looking back at it, is just seeing all the nostalgic drivers and everything. We'll take a look. Greg Moore, of course, for Forsyth Racing in 1997. Maybe I will go with Mr. Carl Haas, though, driving. So you're able to pick your driver. The selection of tracks, it's the full kart schedule. So of course this is about a couple years after the IndyCar split, and so no Indianapolis, obviously, that's the big missing, but you do have some of the newer tracks to the series. Miami, of course, the Homestead Speedway, and it's the square version of it, which is really interesting. And then you've got the whole calendar, Long Beach, of course, Milwaukee, the classic oval, and then the super speedways as well. Michigan, which was the home of the US 500, the ill-fated US 500. Fontana, of course, brand new track in 1997. Surprised they were able to get a picture of it. It actually looks like a stock car race picture, probably from 1996. Laguna Seca, of course, so the whole calendar is here, and I remember at the time them talking about how they were building this simulator in some of the commercials and advertisements, and they did apparently use scan data to build the tracks. I'm not sure what kind of scan data would have been available in 1996 and 1997 for them to build all these. Driving around the circuits, it's clear there's some missing points in that scan data apparently, but it is cool to see the whole calendar in one place. Obviously, we don't have IndyCar games anymore, so it's fun to have it all to go with. So I think we'll do a couple laps. Maybe I'll pick a classic Elkhart Lake Road America just to do a couple laps. Now, we'll get to the simulator part of this, the garage settings and everything. So you have a ton of settings and things to change, and it's pretty impressive that they were able to pack all this stuff in. And you can see it's in an interesting format here with the UI. It's funny because the critics, the main media outlets, praised the UI for all the different options, but this game was really packaged in the Windows 98 software packages that came out at the time, and it aggressively uses all the Windows components. I think they were forced essentially when developing the game to use all the different menus and items that could exist within Windows just to show off what it could do. So all of these settings use that, and it's sometimes to its detriment that you have these weird menus and everything with different icons, but literally you can change everything about the car, from suspension and all that. But driving the cars, I'm not sure how much of a difference all of this will make. You can even adjust the mirrors, I guess, here. So I'll leave everything as it is. Of course, you can also save settings and pick up different setups. We got a default setup though for Elkhart Lake, and so we'll pick that. Sim does have multiplayer. I'm sure it wouldn't work anymore. Maybe you can connect via IP, but that was maybe one of the only redeeming parts of this for sim racers at the time. You could race online apparently fairly easily compared to some of the other games, so it was possible to have some IndyCar racing online, which was hard to do in previous simulators. We'll go up to the top menu. I've had a hell of a time trying to get used to the different menu options in this and how you select and go through everything, but your usual host of settings with all the realism options and everything, pretty sure I have it all set to about as realistic as it could go. So let me go here to the races menu. We can do a single race weekend, and I'll do a practice session. We'll go out on the track at Elkhart Lake, and I'll show you what this thing looks like.
At Road America, they'll race 50 laps around the long 4-mile circuit for a total of 200 miles.
Well, thank you, Bob Varsha, for the introduction to Road America. I like how they insert him wherever they can to introduce me to the tracks, and he definitely talks during the races too, don't you worry. But we're here at Elkhart Lake. I'll pull out of the pits, and you'll notice one of the biggest gripes with the sim when I am in first gear and I just hit the accelerator and you just aggressively peel out the car. I don't know if they did that because you often see on TV, we'll try to let this eagle by, often see on TV the cars peeling out of the pits, and so maybe you want to be able to repeat that, but it's clear right off the get-go that there's some weird physics stuff going on here. So I've got another car right behind me as I'm trying to exit the pits. Here we go. Pull to the inside, maybe to the outside, let that car by. Oh, it's one of the Penske's. All white, of course, can't use the Marlboro logos. But we'll come under the Briggs & Stratton sign. So overall, I think this game attracted a lot of attention because of how it looks. If you think to what IndyCar Racing 2 looks like, running in only software mode and DOS limited resolution, this does look pretty good for the time. We'll come to the bottom of the hill here, brake a little early. To our modern eyes, obviously it's a bit rough. There's some very interesting graphical glitches, like seeing the cars under the road surface there. They haven't quite figured out how to make sure you're only rendering things which would be visible. You do often see objects floating below the surface. Oh, got a flag there for maybe hitting this car trying to pass. I think he hit me. Oh, I got Brian Herta coming up around me too. Gotta pick up the pace a little bit, I guess. Everybody's coming on by. We'll come into the carousel. Now the steering wheel on the screen really doesn't move at all with my actual steering wheel. It's kind of a stinted movement. Ooh, was that a black flag for a second? But I am able to use a limited rotation on the steering wheel to drive, and it's a little weird to get used to, but the sim does feature force feedback, which was a brand new feature and one of the things on the box. If you had your Microsoft Sidewinder, you could use force feedback with this, and a lot of us in the sim racing community, car gets very loose there, gonna run off the track. It's come up quite a few times, especially with playing Grand Prix Legends, as what was the first sim with force feedback, and many of us say Grand Prix Legends because in our mind it was, but this apparently has force feedback, and it does work a little bit, even with my G27 here, where I can feel the weight of the car slightly. I've turned off all the crash effects because they'll just rumble the hell out of the wheel as you go over curbings or hit any wall or anything like that, but I guess it technically does have some kind of force feedback to help you along, which is very, very cool for 1997. I think a year at least before Grand Prix Legends came out, and Grand Prix Legends didn't even have force feedback on initial launch. It was put in with a patch. We'll come down here, see if we can go up the inside. Now, you may be noticing one of the major issues with this sim, and that is the AI are about the worst things I've ever raced against in a racing simulator. They're not even good in an arcade sense. Well, they'll be competitive and pass you. They seem to just kind of arbitrarily slow down and speed up. I've had a really interesting time trying to figure out how to get them to race around an oval. It seems if you try to do a pace lap on any of the oval circuits, all of the AI will just spin out as they come to the green flag, which I guess isn't too far off reality with the US 500, but it's very surprising. Through the kink, you're gonna spin out. Gonna run into all the AI as they come around the corner. Apparently no crash damage in practice or something like that. We'll let all these cars go. So to modern sensibilities, this is absolutely an arcade game. There's not a lot of simulator happening here, but it tried to do some interesting sim things under the hood. I'll try to do maybe another lap around Road America here. So I want to show off some of the more interesting aspects of the menus. We'll come around the final corner. And I'd say overall, if I look at this Road America version compared to the one that comes with IndyCar Racing 2, I would say this is no worse technically as far as accuracy with the circuit than IndyCar 2 is. It's definitely not a lot better though. If anything, there's just some more objects and things around the circuit, so at the time people were probably blown away that their computer could have these types of graphics. Onto the grass there, didn't seem to affect me much. But the overall shape of the circuit is about the same accuracy level. Herta swings in front of me there, all right. Come down to the bottom of the hill. Third gear, so quite a wide corner there. That's usually a pretty tight corner. Come over the top of the hill, running a bit wide. I think you could practice this quite a bit and get decent at it if you really wanted to. And I chose Road America here because this was one of those circuits where everybody says, or everybody that drove any of these late 90s kart cars says this was the ultimate place to drive them. I'm not sure we're getting that ultimate experience here, but it's entertaining for a couple minutes at least. Come through the kink this time, see if I can avoid spinning out. Do so successfully. Flat out here towards Canada corner. On the grass again. Find it almost impossible not to lock up the brakes. Come around the top of the hill here though. Alright, so I made it around the track in one piece, but it's really difficult. It's not easy at all, and I think if I was to try to drive it more unrealistically, I'd probably do better. But come across the line. Alright, so we'll jump out of the car. So one of the interesting things about this, if I come up to Pi analysis, is we can actually take a look at our telemetry data and compare that, I guess, to other laps I've done or potentially laps that the AI is built into the game, and just see how you compare. And this is very realistic to how you would actually do something like this in real life. So this to me is some of the most impressive stuff with this sim, because you don't even have a lot of this in many modern sims, or it's not built in by default, easy to access. I know there's some add-ons and things for sims like iRacing that would let you do it. But yeah, if we look here, we can see the red and blue lines. I'm sure one of them represents throttle and one of them is brake, maybe speed and acceleration or something. But you can watch your whole best lap and compare that to where you are. Maybe download a friend's quick lap time and see how much slower you are. Very cool stuff. It's not something that I would expect in any game from the 90s, nevertheless one like this. So I don't want to paint this quick review here as if they weren't trying. The driving situation is pretty rough in this, but clearly they were putting some effort into making some cool features and physics, and this is some of the stuff that everybody agrees was very, very ahead of its time. Switch here to full graph, so we can just watch the graph itself and just see where it's different. We'll come back to the speed there. So we have a bunch of different options to take a look at for the graph itself. Can look at speed, can look at brake inputs. Just stop the replay there, just getting non-stop sound, which is fun. We can zoom in on parts of it, so you could spend a lot of time in here trying to dissect where exactly you were going off, but clearly I've got some work to do driving off the track there. So we'll continue out of that. Take a look at maybe another track or two in the sim. I will say, no matter what car you drive, the cockpit looks identical, so there's really no difference in driving for Andretti's car versus Greg Moore's car or anything like that. But I do want to take a look at the Miami circuit, go around an oval. This is a cool version of Miami. We'll go do a practice again.
Homestead Motorsport Complex is the 1.5-mile oval that kicks off the PPG Kart World Series season.
Kicks off the season. I guess it would have been the second year. Oh, we're just running into the wall. Coming out of the pit lane. Thank you, Kart Precision Racing. So this was a pretty new track in 1997. I think this would have been the second year that Kart went here. And this track was originally built to be a scaled down version of Indianapolis. Come out of the pit lane here. Rev limiter activated. That's not me doing that at all. It's just the game does it. Oh, we'll finally get control. And so this was built to be like Indianapolis, 4 distinct corners. Everybody knows the Homestead Miami track today. It's the same track, but it was reconfigured after a couple of really bad accidents. And this version of it is maybe a little tighter. Oh, you can probably hear the force feedback there, spinning out, going into turn 3. See if I can loop the car around. Oh, we're gonna smack the wall there. I don't think damage is on in practice anyway. See if I can actually do a lap or two. We got some AI coming up behind, so watch out. But the track overall was reconfigured after a couple bad accidents, fatal accidents, because the angle that you would approach the corners, because the track was smaller, it was much more prone to having bad accidents like that. Now, I was gonna say this version is more narrow than it was in real life. It's actually my first time I'm seeing it in this game, but it in real life was a little bit wider than this. It was a pretty cool looking track, but I know a lot of folks don't know that it used to be a square or rectangular type circuit like Indy is. Alright, once you get a lap or two on the tires, if I don't get the blue flag over and over again here, it's not too hard to handle. Oh, we're gonna spin out as I say that into turn 1. No warning there, the car just decides it doesn't want grip anymore. So it's interesting that this was regarded as a great simulator. I don't know, or I did try it for a minute with the keyboard and it wasn't much different of an experience, so I don't think it's my controller. I think it's just the fact that it's older. People didn't really know what a good simulator was at this point. If the AI was a little bit better in it, I could maybe see it being a little more entertaining. Oh, we're gonna loop it again in the same spot, so clearly turn 1 here. And it might actually be the setup, so let's jump out of the car real quick. I guess I have the default setup on, so if we load up, we'll test this physics out. So if I load up the setup for Miami, then change the gearing at least, see if that handles any different.
Complex is the 1.5-mile oval that kicks off the PPG Kart World Series season.
Gotta love the Bob Varsha facts, but we'll exit the pit lane this time. Be interesting to see if it's any easier to drive with the correct setup. You also might notice in the bottom left-hand corner there is a boost knob, and these are things you can change with different commands. I've got the boost at least bound to my wheel, but I know there's roll bars as well. Can also map some buttons to change the display. There's a ton of controls in the game, so no doubt there's more here than just 10 minutes of playing around. But some of it's just not up to par enough that I feel like you would want to actually sink a lot of time into it. All right, come into the third turn. So far, so good. A little bit better. All right, so the setup might actually matter quite a bit more. Maybe I was trying to race around here with the Elkhart Lake setup. Coming to turn one, that time doing it successfully. So I can't say I feel the car any differently. It still feels like it could spin out at any moment, but with a proper setup, the car at least won't spin out. Oh, we're gonna go a little wide there, catching it. There's some really good footage of a car from about this time period with the IMAX Andretti or IndyCar movie. They did some filming with the Andretti's, Michael Andretti namely, racing around this circuit with some great quality footage. I highly recommend checking that out if you want to see what this track really looked like back in the day. We'll come around the corner, so I'll jump in the pits. Oh, see if I don't hit the pit wall there. We'll jump out. I want to check out maybe another track. Or maybe I'll try to actually do a little bit of a race or something. So we'll take a look at the races here. Jump back to tracks just so we can get a better look at it. But, of course, Australia, Surface Paradise, Long Beach, the classic road circuit. I did try out Long Beach. Getting around the hairpin at the end of the track is not easy at all. Nazareth, of course, RIP. Rio de Janeiro is an interesting oval. Was kind of a square oval. Very dangerous as well. Ask Mark Blundell about that. We've got Gateway. So quite a few ovals on the kart calendar in 1997, which is pretty interesting to see because in later years they became a predominant road series. Portland International Raceway, Cleveland. Why don't we go to Cleveland? Cleveland was a really cool track built on an airport, obviously. From that picture you can tell.
The race distance at Cleveland is 90 laps around a 2 1/3 mile track for a total of 213 miles.
Well, thank you, Bob. Now I know exactly how long it would take to drive around Cleveland. We'll pull out of the pits, though. The big difficulty with Cleveland, in real life as well as other sims like IndyCar, is seeing well because it's all flat. There's no elevation change, and the track is just mega wide. It's built on the actual runways and taxiways. Now, I'm not sure, well, I guess from this version you can see it's pretty wide up here. We've got a nice Cleveland skyline in the background. The airport itself, I've actually been to the airport. I never went to a race at it, but the airport itself sits right on the lake in Cleveland, right next to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Because remember, Cleveland does rock. We'll come to the end of the runway there. You can see the big numbers on it. This is a pretty accurate rendition of the speedway, or at least makes you feel like you're in Cleveland if it's not accurate. Oh, we're gonna run a bit wide. I'm gonna probably still have the Homestead set up on, of course. Let's see if I can come through the end of the lap here, and I think this is the odd version, which has the double chicane. So we got a chicane coming onto the front straightaway, basically around the pits. Across the line there, and then another chicane. In later years, they just had it shoot straight down to turn one. Made for some great passing and controversial stuff. Elio Castroneves one year got penalized there. Oh, hit the wall. See if I can maybe spot some kind of braking zone. So the tracks are fun enough to lap around. Like I said, it's cool to have some kind of game or sim which has a full IndyCar calendar in it just because they're so rare. Didn't really exist. We'll come around the corner here, so you can get kind of an interesting feel for the car. It bobs a lot though. So we'll run onto the grass, hit the cone, doesn't do anything. Oh, we got the blue flags waving though. Try to do maybe one more lap around here. Oh, we're gonna run wide in turn one again and into the wall. So, not very successful at Cleveland itself. Jump back into the menus. Alright, take a look back at the track. So, I did want to attempt to do a little bit of a race, and I feel like something like a Michigan would be a good place to go, or maybe Fontana, since it was the new track of the season. But it would be fun to try to do a little bit of a race, not 25 laps worth, but maybe, oh, actually, we'll go to races. I figured out here you can actually just do a quick race itself. So we can configure this. So we do want to do Fontana with Carl Haas, the venerable Carl Haas driver. We'll start at the back of the pack. We'll do 10 laps. I would love to do a pace lap because you're going to see it's going to spit me right into turn one. But the AI just completely wipe out if you try to do a pace lap. So I can't do a pace lap without things being utter chaos, which is very unfortunate in a racing sim. But we'll see what I can do here. 10 laps around Fontana.
Racing entrepreneur Roger Penske is proud of his beautiful new state-of-the-art racing venue in Southern California. It should make for some great racing.
All right, come to turn one. Throws me right into the wall, of course. Green flag is out, already into turn one. It's a little ridiculous, but yeah, get the throttle down. I'm just 10 laps around the Fontana circuit. Again, very narrow for Fontana. Should be about double as wide as this. We'll pass some cars on the inside down the back straightaway, though. Pretty much standing still, these guys at the back. A little bit of understeer in the corner. There we go, come around to the front straightaway. So at least you have the straight pit lane, unlike the Papyrus games weren't able to do that at the time. Oh, come right up to the wall, just kissing it there. And these were the days of ultimate fast speeds around these circuits. 240, 250 miles an hour. In real life at the end of the straightaways is unreal how fast they would go.
Laps away from the checkered flag.
Well, thank you, Bob Varsha. 8 laps to go. What a thing to announce to the driver. I know you can actually shut those off, I saw, but I thought I'd leave it on for a little flavor there. Whoa, just going to run a little wide into the turn. So making up a lot of positions already, up to 14th. I think this is probably Adrian Fernandez in front of me. The car is all empty from sponsor logos, of course, sponsored by Tecate. All right, come out of the turn. So I could imagine myself, a younger self, back when this was new, having a lot of fun with it, if I would have had a PC that could run it. But that was the issue for a lot of folks. This was really cutting-edge stuff as far as 3D graphics go. If you look at the difference between this and an IndyCar racing in just a couple of years, clearly needed much better computer processing power to do something like this. Would have liked to have
laps away from the checkered flag.
6 laps to go. You would have liked to have a 3D accelerator. Here you're seeing the glide version of accelerated graphics. So those are things that were pretty rare back in 1997. But passing cars pretty easily. They're well spaced out, though. Of course, Fontana was a great track for IndyCar, and I don't think they'll ever go back just because it's set to be destroyed. Oh, and he's going to announce every lap, isn't he, to the end of the race. But 5 laps to go. Cars are getting a little quicker up front here, which is good to see. Oh, come up behind Bobby Rahal. Now, he would have been Miller Lite sponsored in 1997, but not sure what's written on his side pods. Probably Rahal or something like that. Tip it into the corner.
We are 4 laps away.
4 laps away. You could never miss what lap you're on with Bob Varsha talking in your ear the whole time.
Car number 6 puts another lap in the record books.
I think that's me with car number 6. Indeed, in the record books, Bob. At this point, it's almost like we're having a conversation. But yeah, it's a really interesting sim overall. It's fun to check out these older sims. I feel like this is a weird period in sims. It's from about the same time that Spirit of Speed came out, and you can see a lot of similarities here, honestly, in how the cars move, how they kind of slide around the track, and the visual fidelity is much the same, just low poly cars and tracks. The dicing left and right. Oh, gonna work on the low side there. 3 wide for a second.
We're 2 laps away from the checkered flag.
We are 2 laps away. Bob was the commentator there. It's Bob Varsha, that's what I keep saying. And he was pretty popular motorsports commentator, especially in the 90s, but even into the 2000s. And even recently he did some F1 stuff when we still had a broadcast team for that in the States. Certainly did some IndyCar racing back in the day too, but not quite as iconic as Paul Page, of course. So I'm up to 6th place. I think I can see.
We are 1 lap away from the finish.
Yes, that's what that means, Bob. 1 lap away, but I think I can see maybe Greg Moore up there. It'd be cool to catch him. Oh, coming to turn 1. On the high side, there's this Penske in front. I have to say the wings look a little like the road course wing configuration from behind. These might have also been the years with the Hanford device.
Gugelmin wins it all. Great racing.
Gugelmin wins. Find that out even before I get to the finish line. But here I come across the line. Finish in 6th place. Not too bad.
Powers his way across the finish line. Car number 6 finishes the day in 6th place.
6th for 6th.
That was great racing.
Well, thank you, Max Pappas. That was great racing. But here we go. We get final results and everything, which is cool to see. Mauricio Gugelmin winning the race. Jimmy Vasser, Brian Herta. Very, very nostalgic names for IndyCar racing. Just ran with 22 cars there, but it's good fun, at least for an evening. Looks like we can look at a race graph, which will show you all the positions and how they change. So the analytics part of this, somebody went crazy with adding in charts and features like that overall. But check out the instant replay. All we can here, we'll take a look from the race cam. See if I can make that full screen. There we go. So, Kart Precision Racing, not quite the precise racing simulator that it marketed itself to be, but some of the features are very cool, and I totally agree with some of the critics at the time that some really, really cool stuff it was doing. It's too bad they didn't try to develop it further, some of those features, but I think we've pretty much got everything like that these days in Sims. All we need is a new IndyCar simulation, and with IndyCar the way it is now, I can't imagine there's ever been a better time to have something like that. So this is Kart Precision Racing. It's not quite the accurate simulation that all the marketing materials would make you believe, but it does some pretty cool stuff for the time, especially with all the analytics and some of the things we honestly really didn't have in any other simulators until much, much more recently. So hope you enjoyed this. Just kind of a quick look, some pretty sloppy driving, but I'm not sure you can do a lot better with this thing overall. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you all again next time.